Hey guys, thanks for checking out today's video. I thought it was about time to do an update on my Porsche project. For all you guys that have been following along with this project, watching the videos, I want to say thanks. I really appreciate it. And for anyone that's new that may not know the background or history of this vehicle, if you want, I have a full playlist on this car. But if you're new and you don't know anything about it, this is my Honda K24 turbocharged swapped Porsche 911 Carrera S. Don't worry, it's not a real GT3. I wouldn't destroy a real GT3. I'm sure if I did, someone would try to murder me. But yeah, this is my 2006 Porsche 911 Carrera S. It used to have a 3.8 liter flat six in it. It is a 6-speed manual rear wheel drive car. Basically the quick version is I've had this car since 2017. I felt it needed more power. At the time I had a 2015 BMW X5M, and that X5 SUV with nearly 600 horsepower made this car feel slow. Realistically, your sports car shouldn't feel slower than your daily driver SUV. I know that's like first world problems and all that stuff, but I wanted more out of the car, and I contemplated doing all kinds of different things to it, like building the engine, turbocharging the original engine. The issue is, this car does have high miles. I'm the second owner. I got it with a little over 190,000 kilometers. It was very well maintained by the original owner. The engine was in great shape, no signs of wear or tear. I dynoed it, it put down like 300 wheel horsepower. By 2006 standards, that was a reasonable amount of power, but by today's standards, 300 wheel horsepower is not that much. Like my wife's 340i is basically just as fast as this car. So what do? Turbocharge it, build the engine swap. A lot of guys will do an LS swap on these things. LSs are great, they're just not for me. Being who I am, specializing in Honda tuning, specializing in K-Series, that seemed like the obvious choice for me. So I went about doing some just like preliminary work to see how feasible it would be. The big thing to me was I didn't want to cut up the car or destroy it in any way that was like kind of irreversible. And I needed to reuse the Porsche transmission and the Porsche driveline and all that stuff. And obviously keep the car happy, keep the cluster working and all that stuff. So I went about my research, finding an ECU that would keep the car happy but also be flexible enough to run a Honda engine. Luckily, there was already a company that made an adapter plate that would allow me to bolt a Honda K-Series engine to the Porsche transmission, and they made a clutch to go with it, which was fairly inexpensive in my opinion when you consider how expensive a Porsche replacement clutch and flywheel is. So basically, once I had an idea of how I would make it work and what parts I was going to use, I just kind of pulled the trigger, pulled out the engine, started test fitting the Honda K-Series engine in, and it looked like it would fit. It was a bit tall. I had to do some stuff to make it work. Ultimately, the car is where it is today. I'm going to go open the hood, show you a bit underneath of what I've done to this point to get it to where it is. I've tuned it. Right now it's on just basically wastegate spring pressure, which was roughly about 7 to 10 pounds of boost because it crept a little bit. At 10 pounds of boost, the car is currently making 433 wheel horsepower and 330 foot-pounds torque. So pretty decent. Considering this is a completely stock Honda K24 engine. This specific engine I bought from a wreckers. It has 90,000 kilometers on it, and I paid $650 for this engine that's in here. And I've been beating on it. It makes power, it pulls strong, and I have no concerns over the strength and the longevity of this engine technically. So all that being said, why don't I pop the hood, show you a little bit of where it's at, and then I'll cut to some shots of the dyno poles and show you the final dyno graph. All right guys, so as a lot of you have complained about, I finally removed the GT3 badge. Like, this was a real GT3 wing off of a real GT3 car. Same paint job and everything, I didn't have to paint it. So I just never got around to taking off the GT3 badge, but I finally did it. And now I actually have to figure out what I'm gonna put here. Like, do I put something like K997? Do I put something like 911K, or maybe just K24? I don't know. If you have any ideas what would look cool, maybe you put it in the comments for me. So without further ado, here is the engine bay with the K24. As I mentioned, it is a Honda K24 engine. This specific engine is a 2014 Honda Civic Si. The designation is the K24 Z7. This specific engine doesn't get a lot of love in the swap world for swapping into other chassis because it has a unique crank position sensor. But that worked out well for me because it makes these relatively inexpensive and plentiful because guys aren't scooping them up to do swaps. But it's still a very potent engine. And the unique thing about this engine is it has one exhaust port. And a lot of guys will say that that's an issue. Realistically, it's an issue for if you're gonna stay NA, but for a turbo setup, it is fantastic because it directs all the exhaust gases very quickly and efficiently into one single spot, which with the creation of a very small, short turbo manifold can direct all the gases to the turbo, which helps spool time and basically response of the turbo. Turbo-wise, I went with a Garrett G35-900 reverse rotation turbo. It's rated to technically 900 horse. Currently it's making 433. Basically the plan is to up the boost a little bit in a bit. I hope to run probably around, I don't know, 12, 13, 14, 15 pounds of boost, whatever it takes to get as close to possible as 500 wheel horsepower. The one limiting factor I think is going to be that I'm still running the stock Porsche fuel pump and most of the stock Porsche fuel line. And I basically just want to see how far I can push that stock fuel system. I am monitoring the fuel pressure. Basically I have this takeoff line and I have a sensor standoff set for oil pressure and fuel pressure, and I monitor it. And so far, fuel pressure is rock solid. So I can raise the boost once I get it back on the dyno. So yeah, I'm just gonna continue going through the setup. I mentioned the turbo. I am running a KLM 4-inch thick intercooler. I'm running all 3-inch charge piping. I'm running a K-Tune 72mm drive-by-wire throttle body that is controlled by the original Porsche throttle pedal. No craziness, no custom stuff there. I am also running a modified Skunk 2 Ultra Street intake manifold. I basically just had to chop off the original throttle body flange so that I could bolt a drive-by-wire throttle body onto it. And with the help of my good friend John, he helped me machine out a 2-inch spacer to space the plenum out enough so that I could run a stock Honda power steering pump. And then just with a custom little adapter that I made, we were able to retain power steering and use the Honda power steering pump and a Honda power steering fluid reservoir. As for engine mounts, this is actually still using the stock original Porsche engine mounts, and I just ended up making a custom brace to connect the engine to the original engine mounts. It is super nice inside, no harsh vibrations, and the engine really doesn't move around that much, so it's pretty nice. It's very streetable and not harsh like you would get in some upgraded engine mounts, and that's really not what I wanted anyways. As for the exhaust, I did make a custom turbo manifold. Again, my friend John helped me. He helped me design the CAD file, and there's a whole video on this turbo manifold, but basically we designed it and I sent the files off and they CNC machined it, shipped it back to me. We welded it up here. So far so good. It has performed well, and we'll see how well it does as we push the power limits. For the fuel system, I did mention it's running the stock Porsche pump still, and half of the stock Porsche fuel line. Halfway down the car, I switch it up to a -8 line, and I'm running a K-tuned fuel rail. So that might be about it for up top. Why don't I lift it up and share with you guys some of the stuff from underneath, because you can actually see a bunch more from underneath. All right guys, so from underneath, seems like a lot going on, but you can see a bit more of what we've done. As I mentioned, we're running the KLM 4-inch core intercooler. I did end up having to cut it down a little bit just to make it clear the tire. It used to be about 3 or 4 inches longer than that, but I don't think that's gonna have any real negative effects on it. For the exhaust system, I went with my good friends actually at Yonaka, have some really nice stainless material for custom exhaust fabs, and they helped me out with a bunch of their material. And what we ended up doing was to retain the dual tips of the original system. The one tip is fed by the turbo, and the other tip is fed by the dump tube of the wastegate, just to keep it symmetrical. I don't know, it seems to work for now. So I'm running one vibrant, ultra quiet resonator, and it is still a bit too loud. So I'm gonna look into redoing this exhaust a little bit to make it a bit quieter for my, it sounds great, but it is just a bit too loud for my taste, and my wife is not happy with it. So, so I did retain the Honda factory AC compressor pump, and when I have some time, I am just going to make up the custom lines to connect to the original Porsche lines, and the car will have AC again. I just haven't had time to do that. I know I'm kind of all over the place. I'm really terrible at this YouTube stuff. It would actually be much easier if I had someone else here helping and bouncing stuff off of, but either way, I'm gonna keep going through this and share with you as much as I can by myself, and then maybe at some point, I'm gonna connect with Speed Academy, and maybe we'll do a better in-depth review of all the bits and pieces of this setup. But for now, I wanted to share as much as I could on my own, give you guys a little quick update and peek from the top and the bottom. While I'm down here, I might as well show part of how I've made this engine actually way more serviceable than the original Porsche engine, ironically. The way this setup is all set up is everything is basically attached to the engine. The exhaust system is attached to the engine and the engine brace. And then all the lines that are connected to the engine have enough slack, except for the charge pipes, but I'm gonna get into that into a second. So basically, if I need to service the spark plugs or anything, all I need to do is lower the engine, which is hung by these studs up here, and lower the engine down so that I can access the spark plugs or whatever I need to do. I actually have a video of doing just that a little while ago that I've been holding on to just to be able to insert into this video that I knew I was going to be doing. So basically, yeah, you have to disconnect this brace over here because it's in the way, but it's only 4 bolts, and lower the sway bar just down, remove the 2 bolts on either side so it's out of the way, and then the whole engine comes down. But I'm going to cut to that video, share with you how you can easily drop this engine down to service it without having to remove it, and quickly do stuff like spark plug changes and things like that. So why don't we jump to that video? All right, guys, so like I said, I'm not sure how this is gonna fit into the video, but I wanted to make sure I did capture the engine like this, in this position, so that you could see how much room you're working with with this setup. And as I may have mentioned, I wanted to be able to drop the engine down, and so everything is attached to the engine as one basically cohesive assembly that you can drop down and access things, such as ignition coils and spark plugs. With the engine down like this, you can easily remove a coil and easily access a spark plug, or easily access the injectors, or even take off the valve cover if need be. And that was by design. And in order to do this, it's super simple. It's not complicated. You don't have to take apart a lot of stuff on the setup, because the way I guess Porsche had originally designed the engine was that for any servicing, it really does need to be dropped down out of the engine bay. So I'm utilizing that same mentality, and all you have to do is either with the car, I have it with a jack stand like this, and but you can easily just have it on the ground on a set of jack stands or something with a regular conventional jack underneath the engine, and all you would need to do is unbolt the sway bar from its mounts and let it hang down, remove the engine brace that has 4 bolts holding in. You only have to actually take out 2 bolts and just lower the engine down a bit. The drive shafts are still connected. Everything is still connected up front with the transmission mount and the shifter and the clutch and everything. Even the drive shafts, we could technically have it further down. The drive shafts aren't touching the suspension brace there. And like I said, everything is attached to the engine and the brace and whatnot. The exhaust system is all one piece, so that we can easily lower the engine down just enough so that we can access stuff like ignition coils. So it's not ideal, but I think it's a pretty good solution, and not too difficult to do. So like I said, I'm not sure how this is going to fit into this video, but I wanted to make sure that I did capture this like this, so that you could see what I meant about being able to still access spark plugs and ignition coils and injectors or whatever you may need to access in the top of the engine bay. So hope that helps, and let's get back to the rest of the video. All right, so hopefully that video helped clear up how you drop the engine, and with me being up top again, You can see how tight everything is in here. And what I did actually forget to mention while I was going through all the stuff on the top is this valve cover. This valve cover is a custom piece that I made with the help of my friend John and my friend Roy, who helped me develop this valve cover. And then I had it custom sand cast here locally, and it was really the piece that made this all possible. The big issue with the Honda K Series engine is it's very tall, and there is not much space to work with in this Porsche engine bay. It was basically just not possible to fit the engine in the engine bay with the stock valve cover, so this valve cover had to be created, and it is technically a one-off prototype piece. It is not perfect, but it does the job very well for now. But yeah, that's about it for the setup. There's still a lot of little things to take care of. There's a couple little oil leaks that I want to fix, and I need to do a bunch of heat management protection. So I'm looking into doing that just to protect this side of the engine bay. And I do want to take advantage of this opening to get fresh air to feed into the turbo, the filter of it. So I want to be able to create something that directs air down into the filter. But that's probably enough rambling about the setup for now. Why don't I cut to some shots of me tuning it, and then all said and done, I'll share with you the final results. right, guys, hopefully you enjoyed those dyno pulls. On to the final results. As I mentioned before, this is a completely internally stock 2014 Honda Civic Si engine, the K24 Z7. I've never opened it, never done anything inside. Currently, it is running about 10, 11, almost 11 PSI max boost. There is a 7 PSI spring in the wastegate. The boost controller is not on. I do have full boost basically, or 7 or 8 pounds of boost at 3,800 RPM with this turbo, which is super impressive that it spools up that quickly, considering it's capable of basically 900 wheel horsepower. But all said and done, running basically 7 PSI, creeping to 10, almost 11 at redline. We ended up making almost basically 434 horsepower, 330 torque, and super nice linear power band. Basically full torque just before 4,000, and it carries it all the way to 75. As perspective, the original Porsche engine only made 300 wheel horsepower, and it peaked at 250 foot-pounds torque, and that was just a little peak. The average was basically 200 foot-pounds torque. So significant improvement at only 10 pounds of boost with this stock engine so far. The goal is to tune it again soon, turn on the boost controller, raise the boost hopefully a little bit to maybe 15. We'll see how it goes. I want it to be over 450 horse, maybe as close to 500 as possible. But I think the limiting factor is going to be the stock Porsche fuel pump. So we'll have to see how much fuel it can actually put out. So far, I am very happy with the results. It feels fantastic on the street. I do intend to try to make a video of me driving it on the street. I'm gonna have to enlist a friend or somebody to help film that, because it's just me by myself normally. But I'm sure I can find someone to help basically capture some footage of it rolling, the sounds that it makes. It sounds super cool, in my opinion. And I know a lot of guys are gonna say, oh, it's a Honda, it's a 4-cylinder, it sounds wrong. It doesn't sound like a Porsche, but it doesn't sound bad. The turbo sounds super cool. Because this is like a single exhaust port, it doesn't sound like a typical Honda engine. But I will leave that up for everyone else to decide what they think. I like it. So anyways, that's probably about it for this video. Before I go, I do have to say thanks to a few people and a few companies that have helped me out along the way. I really do appreciate the help of all the people that have been involved with this project. My good friend Eric Lavigne, he helped me out with basically the final push to finish this. I was slowing down. He invited me to bring the car over to his shop, and we worked on it together over the winter to finalize all the little things that needed to be done with this engine. So thanks again, Eric, for your help with that. Thanks to K-Tuned for providing a lot of the parts that went on this setup. I really appreciate all their help. They're great guys. They always hook me up with parts. Thanks to Yonaka for hooking me up with the exhaust stuff to do this exhaust system. It worked out fantastically. I'm super happy with it. They're a bunch of great guys there. I've known them for almost 20 years. So thanks again for that stuff, guys. And I have to say thanks to my friends that have helped me out. John, Roy, Will, Salko, you guys have been a big help making this project happen. And I really do appreciate all the help you guys gave me. If I've missed anyone, I'm very sorry. I will correct it in the future, but thanks again to everyone that's helped me out with this project. I am super happy with the results. The car is not done. It's very close. I would say it's maybe like 80% done, but at least I can start driving it now. I am super happy with how it drives. I am not disappointed. It doesn't feel wrong at all. I wish I could take everyone out for a spin just to show you what it's like, but hopefully once I get around to making the driving video, it'll help a bit. But anyways, that's probably about it for this video. If you're still watching up to this point, I really do appreciate it. If you like the video, do me a favor, hit like. If you want to keep seeing this content, do me a favor, hit subscribe, and I will continue to keep making this content for you guys. So thanks again for watching, guys, and I will see you again soon. Bye now.